Hello, and welcome to Atis Conflict Studio, where we try to manage conflicts. Because we know not all conflicts can be resolved. Some can only be managed without a final resolution or reconciliation. I want to start today's episode with a question. Have you ever worked as part of a team that some members perform most of the work and some others take most of the credit? Or in a class project, some students have wonderful ideas, but they get interrupted by some other students when trying to explain them. It seems as if, regardless of who is better at it, some always present themselves better in public. Let's see how this plays out in real life. Are you ready for another true story based on one of my cases? As always, I have modified the story to remove any personally identifiable facts. Let's go! Today's story is about two colleagues, Emma and Jake, who are working on a project as part of a larger team of architects. Emma prefers brainstorming in group settings, bouncing ideas off others, and speaking her thoughts out loud as she processes them. Jake, on the other hand, likes to think things through in silence before sharing his thoughts. He needs his quiet and solitude before presenting his ideas. Emma assumes Jake is disengaged. Jake, meanwhile, feels overwhelmed by Emma's constant discussions and finds it difficult to keep up or focus. Jake believes the team leader gives all of the credit to Emma, despite the fact that he worked even harder and spent hours studying and understanding the needs of the client. Sounds familiar? Do you think Emma is trying to overshadow Jake? Or do you think Jake is not contributing enough to the team? This is a classic case of introvert versus extrovert communication differences. Misunderstandings like this happen not because one way is better than the other, but because people operate differently. And when conflicts arise, whether in work or personal life, these differences can either escalate the tension or, if understood correctly, can create a more balanced interaction and even a more productive team with a higher quality outcome. Today, we are breaking down introversion and extroversion in communication and conflict resolution. And we want to see how personality traits shape the way people express themselves, listen, and react to tension. If paired correctly, introverts and extroverts can be a match made in heaven. But if not, every interaction can easily rise to a conflict, both in personal and professional settings. So, what is the difference between introverts and extroverts? Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung was the first person to introduce this idea. There are several definitions for this concept, but mostly focus on where the energy is spent by each type of personality. Introverts are more inward looking, and extroverts are outward looking, so they gain more energy from the external world. Therefore, an introvert is someone who gains energy from spending time alone and focuses on their internal world, while an extrovert is energized by social interaction and thrives in stimulating external environments, essentially drawing energy from being around others. But please note, like any other topics related to human traits, these are not absolute concepts, and there's always a spectrum. In fact, some people are just in the middle. We call them ambiverts. So now that we know these are two different personality types, what are the main characteristics that are known to be predominantly present in either of these two categories? Introverts tend to feel more comfortable in quiet environments. They prefer deep one on one conversations over group discussions and need time alone to recharge. They often think deeply before they speak and may prefer written communication over verbal interactions. Extroverts, on the other hand, feel energized by social interactions, enjoy group settings, and tend to think out loud. They are often seen as more talkative and outgoing, preferring face to face or verbal communication over written ones. Neither of these two is better or worse. They are just different ways of interacting with the world. But when it comes to conflict, these differences can either help or hurt the situation if they go unaddressed. For example, an introvert prefers separate offices. Usually, extroverts, though, prefer open offices, which we see more common now. Now, how do these two categories manage conflict differently? The approach to conflict by extroverts, they may confront issues head on, preferring immediate discussions and resolution. They feel comfortable expressing their emotions openly and expect others to do the same. Introverts, however, may need time to process before addressing the conflict. They might prefer to reflect before responding and may even avoid direct confrontation. For example, imagine an extrovert boss giving critical feedback to an introverted employee. The boss expects an instant response, while the introverted employee needs time to process before they respond. The boss assumes silence means agreement, or worse, it's disengagement, while the employee is just taking their time to think. So, what are the key takeaways? Introverts may need space to process, while extroverts may need assurance that silence doesn't mean indifference. Another area is verbal versus written communication. Extroverts often prefer real time discussions, whether it's face to face or it's on a call. They may get frustrated by long emails or delayed responses. Introverts feel more comfortable expressing themselves in writing, where they can organize their thoughts while they're processing them. For example, an introvert may prefer a well thought out email after a tense meeting, while an extrovert may just prefer a discussion in person right away. If they don't understand each other's styles, misinformation can lead to frustration or resentment. Key takeaway: if you are an extrovert working with an introvert, allow time for reflection. If you are an introvert working with an extrovert, be clear about when you will follow up. Energy in group settings versus one on one conversations. Extroverts thrive in group discussions. They find energy in brainstorming sessions and may feel like ideas flow best when they're bouncing off multiple people. Introverts prefer smaller, focused discussions. Too much back and forth in a group can be draining, and they may not volunteer to speak up unless directly addressed. Now, let's go back to Emma and Jake. It turns out in that team meeting, Emma was not trying to steal the show. She was just being her extroverted self. But it sounded like she's trying to dominate the conversation. Jake preferred to remain silent, since he was deeply contemplating the solutions that he was coming up with. The extrovert might assume the introvert has nothing to contribute, while the introvert may actually have great ideas, but prefers to share them later after evaluating and studying them in further details. Key takeaway: creating a balanced environment where both personality types feel heard is a key to having an efficient team, bridging the gap in conflict resolution between extroverts and introverts. Now that we understand the differences, how do we adapt and communicate better with the other side? Are you an extrovert communicating with the introvert? We have some tips for you. Give them time to process before expecting immediate response. Allow space for written feedback instead of pushing for verbal reactions or teamwork. Avoid assuming silence means disinterest. It may just mean they're thinking. Do not overly emphasize on the benefits of teamwork. Remember, many major contributions in art, science, medicine, and every discipline comes from introverted people, and teamwork may not have been their strongest suit. Now, if you're an introvert communicating with an extrovert, be clear about when you need time to process. So the time you need to process is not mistaken with avoidance or being dismissive. And try to engage in real-life discussions when necessary, even if it's brief or even if it's just a reference to a memo that you have drafted before or you are going to. If you're overwhelmed in a group setting, follow up later with written thoughts and make sure that the team knows and understands that you're going to get back to them, and clarify a time frame that works for everyone and communicate that time frame with the team. For conflict resolution in mixed groups, this is what we suggest. In meetings, allow both fast and slow thinkers to contribute. Extroverts may speak first, but introverts should get a chance to share later. So don't give very tight deadlines for communicating or contributing to a conversation. Use a mix of different types of communication, such as verbal and written communication, to accommodate both preferences. And respect personal boundaries. Forcing someone into a communication style that they are uncomfortable with can escalate conflict rather than resolving it. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Understanding introverts and extroverts in communication isn't about labeling people. It's about recognizing the different styles and bridging the gap to create healthier relationships. Recognizing these differences reduces misunderstandings and strengthens both personal and professional connections between different members of a team. What's next? In the next episode, we'll dive into collectivism versus individualism culture. We want to explore why different cultures have different mindsets that shape the way people approach conflict within teams. So we will break down why some people are more of we people, while some other are very me. So we will discuss differences between individualist and collectivist. Do you have a story, question, or experience to share? Please send them in. And remember, not all conflicts can be resolved, but every conflict can be managed. See you in the next episode.